There's a woman at your job. Let us call her Patricia. Patricia has been with the company 11 years. She is organized, she documents everything, she knows the policies better than most managers do. One afternoon, her skip level asks her how things are going with her direct manager. Patricia tells the truth. She says her manager has been inconsistent, that deadlines keep shifting, that she has raised the issue twice and nothing has changed. The skip level nods, thanks her for her candor, says this kind of feedback is exactly what helps the company improve. Patricia walks out of that meeting feeling, for the first time in months, that someone in leadership actually heard her. 3 weeks later, Patricia is placed on a performance improvement plan. She did not make an error, she did not miss a deadline, she did not violate a policy. She said the wrong phrase to the wrong person in the wrong room. And the moment she said it, HR opened a case file on her. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what a case file is, what triggers it, what goes into it, and what it means for your position at that company. Because once you know what a case file looks like from the inside, you will never read a conversation with HR the same way again. Here is what most people believe about HR. They believe HR is a neutral body, a place where workplace problems get resolved, a function that exists to protect the employee as much as it protects the organization. That belief is not stupid. It's what HR's public-facing materials are designed to produce. Here is what HR actually is. HR is the organization's legal and operational risk management function. Its primary mandate is not to resolve your problem. Its primary mandate is to document the organization's response to your problem in a way that protects the organization if the situation escalates to a tribunal, a lawsuit, or a regulatory review. That is not a conspiracy. That is the job description. And once you understand that mandate, every HR interaction you have ever had will start to rearrange itself. The case file is not a folder with your name on it that HR opens when you get hired. It is a documentation record that is created when a specific threshold is crossed, when a complaint is made, when a performance concern is logged, when a conversation in a skip-level meeting produces information that HR now has a legal obligation to record. Patricia did not know she crossed that threshold. She thought she was giving feedback. HR heard something different. HR heard an employee describing a management failure in specific terms: inconsistency, unaddressed escalation, repeated pattern. That language maps directly onto the categories HR is trained to document: hostile environment, constructive dismissal risk, liability exposure. Patricia's candor did not disappear into the ether. It became the first entry in her case file. And here's the part nobody warns you about. The case file does not record what you meant to say. It records what you said, in the language of the person writing the summary, with the framing that protects the organization's position, not yours. Patricia's description of her manager's inconsistency became, in the file, employee expressed dissatisfaction with management direction. Her statement that she had raised the issue twice became employee reported repeated escalations without resolution. Accurate in the broadest sense, reframed in a way that centers Patricia's dissatisfaction rather than the management failure she described. That reframing is not accidental, it is the function. Let us talk about what actually triggers a case file. Not every HR conversation produces one. There's a distinction between a routine HR interaction, a benefits question, a policy clarification, a payroll correction, and an interaction that crosses the documentation threshold. The threshold is crossed when you introduce one of 4 elements into a conversation with HR or with any manager who reports upward to HR. The first is a named pattern of management behavior, not a single incident, a pattern. This has happened 3 times is a documentation trigger. My manager does this consistently is a documentation trigger. A single event is a complaint. A pattern is evidence. The second is a comparison to protected characteristics, even an indirect one. I notice that everyone who is affected by this decision is over 40, does not need to be an explicit discrimination claim to open a file. HR hears the protected class, the file opens.
The third is the word hostile, in any sentence, in any context. The environment has been a bit hostile lately is not a casual observation inside an HR building. That word has a legal category attached to it. The file opens. The fourth is an expressed intention to escalate. I'm going to have to take this further, or I'm not sure this can be resolved internally. Signals to HR that external exposure is possible. The file opens. Patricia used the first trigger. She named a pattern. She described a repeated failure to respond to her escalations. She did not know she was doing it. Most people do not. Here is what the case file means for your position. A case file is not a termination order. In most cases, it is not even a disciplinary in intent at the moment it is created. What it is a decision architecture. Once a case file exists, every subsequent interaction you have with HR, with your manager, and with leadership is interpreted through the lens of that file. A performance review that might have been a 3 out of 5 becomes, in the context of the file, corroborating evidence of the documented concern. A request for a meeting that would normally be routine is now logged against the open case. A lateral move that would otherwise have been offered is now held pending resolution of the file. The case file does not lock the door, but it changes who holds the keys. This is why the PIP that Patricia received 3 weeks after her skip-level meeting did not feel connected to anything she had done wrong. It was not connected to her performance. It was connected to the decision architecture that the case file had created around her. The organization did not decide to remove Patricia because she was a poor performer. The organization decided that Patricia had become a liability risk, and the PIP is the legal mechanism that converts a liability risk into a documented performance concern, which is the only category that allows the organization to exit an employee cleanly. That sequence is what we call the case file pipeline, and once you can see it, you will recognize it in every managed-out colleague you have ever watched walk out of the building and wondered what happened. You did everything right, or you thought you did. You told the truth. You raised legitimate concerns through the correct channels. You gave feedback when you were asked for it directly by someone senior. You were, by every measure, doing what an engaged, honest, professional employee is supposed to do. The system did not fail because you played it wrong. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work. It documented your candor as a liability. It reframed your feedback as dissatisfaction. It converted your honesty into the opening entry of a case file. That is not a malfunction. That is the function. And the reason this is so important to understand is not so that you stop being honest. It is so that you stop being honest in rooms where honesty is weaponized. It has 2 stages. Stage 1 is the trigger conversation. The employee says something, in good faith, through proper channels, that crosses one of the 4 documentation thresholds: a named pattern, a protected class reference, a hostile environment signal, and escalation intent. Stage 2 is the reframe. HR documents the conversation in language that centers the employee's state, their dissatisfaction, their distress, their perception, rather than the external condition the employee described. The employee is now the subject of the file, not the reporter of a problem. Now you know it exists.